In 2003, a dedicated group of 25 believers, representing 3 churches, including North Hills Christian Church, embarked on a mission trip to Honduras. Together, we prayed, cradled babies, worshiped, sipped on Pepsi, and worked hard laying concrete. Lots and lots of concrete. In those concrete pathways, we planted seeds of hope and progress for Lifeline Christian missions initiatives in the impoverished regions surrounding San Pedro Sula, particularly in the neighborhood of Ocotillo. Lifeline's facility there encompasses a school, a clinic, and aspirations for a church. The once barren plot, where we diligently laid sidewalks, aspired to become a lush courtyard. Our vision was for children to play and enjoy their lunches under the shade of the yagua and cabiche palms, yet to be planted. As 20 years passed, we held on to the hope of returning to witness the flourishing of the seeds we planted.
So North Hills helped us with the project at Ocotillo, at the school at Ocotillo, around 20 years ago. There was just this barren land, no grass growing. It was really right in between some of the administration buildings of the school and the classrooms. Just very dry, dusty area. And we kind of had a vision to create a kind of a park, essentially. And you all helped us lay out that park, and I'm sure you felt like you were just grunts for the week working, putting in concrete. But now today, and you've been able to return there, you've been able to see it is a very green and lush area. And you probably were able to see the kids use it as a place to maybe eat a snack or get a break during recess. So maybe some of them used it as a place to read, to relax. We've had so many kids who've told us when they leave our school, kind of like do an exit interview with the students as they graduate. So many of them have told us that that area is like a refuge for them. When there's chaos in their home life, when there's the streets out in the community of Ocotillo, when there can be a dangerous place. There's not a lot of places like that where they can go and just feel peace, find a place to relax, and just a place to be refreshed. And you all were a part of that 20 years ago, laying literally the foundations of that. And today it provides that peace and that sense of a retreat for people. So 20 years later, Lifeline does mission trips a lot differently than we used to do. We used to have really large groups of people. We used to not have quite as much interaction, I think, with our local communities. We kind of isolated ourselves from them almost. We very much did things for people. What this does is it just allows for a lot more personal interaction. It allows for relationships to really be front and center as opposed to projects being front and center. It's just a healthier model. We think both for the people that are visiting and for the people that are hosting them. 20 years ago, we chose projects. We just, as foreigners, said this is what we're going to have our teams do. Now we work with our local leaders. What do you want teams to do? And let's make sure they're doing things that you're already engaged in, because we don't want to do things for you anymore. We want to do things with you now. Now we won't do a construction project if there aren't Hondurans who are also with some skin in the game. No longer do we fund 100% of those kinds of projects. We always make sure that there is some local financial investment as well. So very much this shift in posture of doing things for people 20 years ago to now doing things with people. And it just makes it's a dramatic difference. So I think some of the anticipated outcomes of this shift, one is that local leaders would have a greater voice, and they would be stronger and better leaders The last time I counted in Honduras, it was over 40 people that grew up in our programs as students or kids in the church or the youth group, or just people in the community. They have gone on to work for us in some way or another. And so these were kids that were receiving. They're now giving. They're now giving back, and they're not waiting on us to do it. They own the ministry. The old model led to a lot of dependency and entitlement. This new model leads to really empowerment.
Every business starts like from a need that you have.
Línea de vida.
And we have been coming to the Lifeline Church since we were little.
Nos congregamos en la iglesia Línea de Vida y pues me gradué de Línea de Vida.
And I actually graduated from the Lifeline school too.
She was a student. I think she was a junior or a senior, and there was a camp that they wanted to go to. She didn't have money to do it. She was able to get a small micro loan that we were able to help her with to get a tortilla press to help her make tortillas. She already was making some, and she had this small business. And so this press just enabled her to, I guess, advance further, increase her capacity for her business. And so she was able to make a pretty significant jump in her business that was able to fund her way to go to this camp. She's very entrepreneurial, but she's very driven. And so there's lots of people like Liani that they just need an opportunity. They just need a little bit of I guess spark, or just a little bit of a push. They don't need us to do things for them. They just need a little bit of assistance, and they can jump light years ahead on their own. David is another person. He was a member of one of our churches at Ocotillo. So he went through our small business training program and learned a lot there. Again, he just needed some education. He just needed some help. He presented a business plan, got one of the micro loans. Now he's been able to relocate his stand to a more prominent location. So he's just become much more savvy as a business person. And it's made a very big difference for his family. And then he also openly shares that now he's able to be much more generous to the church. Yeah, so our economic empowerment program, it's two things really. It's education, and then it's microloans in some cases. Not everyone that goes through the training program gets a microloan. It's based on them getting a business plan that's approved, and those approvals come from our local leaders. So there's nobody from the U.S. that has any say in that. It's local Hondurans that do the training, and then the decision on approving business plans, approving the loans, is all made by Hondurans as well.
In 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where have you guys always been meeting?
But we need a wall between the containers when we put the roof, and then we'll need a wall just to make it, private. We use this for the homework center too, to use it during the week, and that's why there are some doors that we need to open and some windows.
So this is a part of the container outfitting ministry with Lifeline. There are different projects here in Honduras that have been identified by local leaders on things that they would like to have. So this here is going to be a church. The trusses will be put on tomorrow, so this will act as a church.
So one example of how we can take an asset that's there locally, match it up with a specific kind of tailor-made project using container outfitting is a children's home that we have in Amoa, which is in the northern part of Honduras. The girls there were kind of aging out of the children's home, needed some life skills to be able to, when they leave, to have a great head start. And so we were able to get a church in Ohio to do a container, convert it into essentially a food truck or a restaurant. It doesn't have wheels, but it's a shipping container that they made into a restaurant. And they have a little Mexican restaurant there. Great food right on the main strip of the town. And those are funds that we don't have to send them anymore perpetually from the U.S. because they have resources. They're able to develop them if we just kind of get behind them, give them what they need to kind of get to the next level. And so that's one example of how a container is kind of matched up to a community, tailor fit. That impact is going to continue to give fruit in their families, in their communities, wherever they may end up, long after Lifeline isn't a part of their daily lives.
There's going to be the dental clinic and a small cafeteria. Do you want to see inside?
The Befriend project is a tailor-made project meant to go for a 3-year cycle where we lay out goals and objectives, and we take measurements along the way at the beginning. Okay, this is where we're starting, this is our baseline, this is the target of where we want to get. And so it's essentially helping them build capacity to be able to sustain themselves. So your church focuses on connect, grow, and serve. It really sounds to me like that's a way to describe community transformation. So with this shift that we've made, we feel a certain obligation to help undo some of the damage of the past. And so there are churches that work in communities that are dependent upon funds from the U.S., or they're dependent on things from us still. We created that model, unfortunately. But where we find one of them that is committed to this new vision and this transition that we've made, our approach is to work with them to create essentially a 3-year project cycle that will help move them from dependency now, where they currently are, to a place where they're locally sustainable. And so the way we do that is we try and partner them with a church or a group from the States. Our Honduran leadership works with the leaders in that church and the leaders in that local community to assess what their strengths are, to assess what resources they already have, and essentially to develop a plan over 3 years. Okay, these are some of your objectives that you have as a church. This is how you want to project yourself into your community. This is how you want to expand your impact in your community and transform it. But you need some resource to help create sustainability at the same time. So for us to be able to launch a Befriend project, we need $1,200 a month to be able to start it. So some churches, they can do that themselves. Some churches, it needs to be a partnership, maybe of them and another church, or 2 or 3 churches coming together to do it. Those of us that are Christ followers, we've been changed by the gospel. We're called to proclaim that and demonstrate that to those around us. That's very much who we are as well. We're not just about having people come into a building. We want to go and be where people are. We're not just about giving people a spiritual message. We think where the gospel truly interacts with people, things happen. Change takes place. It's not just a spiritual message that's for our minds or our brains. It's not just an intellectual thing. It literally changes the dynamics of our life. That seems to match up fairly well with what we're trying to accomplish in communities where we're not just trying to get people to come into a church building. We're trying to change that community. I worked with Lifeline in Honduras from 1996 to 2006. And You know, when you're in the day-to-day of your life, it's hard to see change. You just see things change from one day to the next. You don't really get to see maybe the bigger picture of what is happening around you. I left Honduras, came back to the States to go to seminary, and then I worked in a church for 11 years before now coming back to work for Lifeline. And on my second day back with Lifeline a few years ago, I got to go to Honduras. I got to go back. And I was overwhelmed at the fruit that I saw. And it wasn't my fruit. I didn't cause it. You know, it wasn't because of me. I was a steward and played a role in part of it. But God continued to do what He does when I was separated and away for 11 years. But the fruit that I saw was people. I saw kids that I knew as little kids running around in the streets barefoot, playing with bags as if it was a soccer ball. I saw kids that I knew in the youth group. They were now leaders in our churches. I saw people that I remember growing up in our churches that were now serving in our clinic. I saw a young lady that was an orphan, a true orphan, grew up in our children's home that now is a dentist giving back. I think on that visit I counted 27 kids that I knew before as kids that were now giving back. They were now serving. They had received, now they're giving. Since then, some of them have gone and are doing other things in life. But since then, there's been others. And so for me to be able to see that fruit and see that really multiplication has been the most rewarding thing. And if anything, it's been to me the thing that gives me conviction that what we're doing and where we're going is headed in the right direction. We're not perfect. We have made a lot of mistakes. I'm sure we're still making mistakes. But God is gracious and good, and He is at work, and He is multiplying His efforts. And He's taking what we can give, and He's bringing about good things as a result for His glory.